Thank you, Harold.
Because it had a big sticker.
Inform these people.
Nick Crystal has the letter.
Oh, well, shoot.
So it's kind of.
I was worried about you.
And then from Chris, it says what's to the
I think that's what it doesn't say
right next to it.
on the ballot, but that's what they're.
Okay, and it's just the front.
Yeah.
That's almost house.
So who owns behind that?
Oh, thank you.
133.
You know, I
The
am pleased.
adjacent, right next to the
Usually way off.
behind.
What you said was in there.
That's not for sale.
So,
Any
Darlene,
correspondence to me?
storage, space behind the grant. Yeah.
And that is
I'm
what?
talking about potential.
812.
Well, some of them talked to me about multifamily over there on Nick Crystal's 11 acres.
Have they?
Yeah.
812.
Cool, so maybe a little bit late for harvest.
Nothing's inked yet.
Okay.
So I know Nick hired a realtor and he's worked with me about
That's how they
zoning
get it.
possibilities. Because I told him I said he could do in that area, because it would have to annex to the county. Make that a zone. And I said it's surrounded by R1 multifamily to the south, R1 to the west, and a large lot residential. So you can be Dave.
Harold, 812.
Hi.
How are you doing? Sorry.
Hey.
If you wanna be public works director.
4 to 5 two-story public complexes
Okay.
on that land. Yeah. Sounds good.
You can always send me an email.
Give all the information, and I told him definitely we'd want
What's the
to.
concern with being so close
It's
to the
just what my
sewer?
things on the ballot was.
Really no concern. It
No,
was,
no environmental concerns,
Everybody
so
else
that sort of impact.
no, 'cause
Jason
over-
was talking about one of these.
Oh, is that
Make sure there's no tripping
The
up.
other night.
I think it'd be probably pretty standard.
True, what I've been telling people is because of the new phase of Rogers Farm, the sewer lagoon was fine up to the third phase being built. Now that proximity gap has caused concern to CDTG. So when we build this treatment facility with the gross rooms, this will be our beverage being covered. So it's gonna be a covered facility, so it should mitigate the environmental impacts, yeah.
Cool.
Especially the odor.
Okay,
So,
cool, thank you.
hey, you bet.
I got it.
So how are you?
Yeah, he tore all the. Yeah.
I don't know for sure, yeah, we're still waiting on it. Troy made it sound like last night was close.
Yeah, I heard.
Here, oh, yeah, it was county, we were walking.
How are you this evening? Good. Very well. Nick, how are you? No. Pretty good delay.
Yeah, I was
He was
here
here
at
at
6, I'm
6.
like, I'm guessing I'm early, I don't know why, I
I
thought
saw
I
you
heard you say
pull-
6.
Oh, I
And I
saw you
showed
pull
up,
the
I'm racing over here, I'm like,
I was going to get crowd burgers from Silver Spur and I see you squeal the tires and it's like,
I slowed down once I saw the front lot, or the front parking lot empty, I'm like, oh. 6 or 6:30 tonight. I heard 6 for some reason, I don't know why, I looked at the schedule, and it said 6:30, so I'm gonna give you some money for Ken.
thank you guys
Oh, sure.
for truckers.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now you're trying to bribe me with those.
So I got all the decorations and the toys and Nick picked up all the games for the truckers. Okay. Was it October 26th? At, we'll be there at 4 setting up, but yeah, come whenever you want. I just, Cause basically, we have like a start to shut off, right? So I just wanted to order all the business cards that they have a lead from 4 to 17. And then I listed all the reverse dates. And I'll see what the toys. The tag on the toys.
Well, this is the one, little here, excuse me.
What?
No, we were talking about that, so nothing good though.
I was gonna say, you were talking about the left hand, I'm the right hand.
It's gonna be a short night. Everybody's ready, we'll get started.
David, how are you?
They're up there, too.
All right. Tonight we're going to general fund expenditures minus Janet. She's flying tonight to our wedding. So next Wednesday she'll be here. We'll wrap up general fund with seniors and rec, and then we'll move into the special revenue fund. I very briefly went over the revenue estimates last night. I don't focus on that a whole lot quite yet because I need another month of financial data to solidify my year-end estimates and then look at next year's.
For 3 quarters.
Exactly. And the thing about this screen, I like it, but there's about a 3-second or 5-second delay between what I do and what it shows. So I apologize for that.
We
Will
won't
that
know
make it
the
any
difference.
easier to see, or is everybody gonna go sleep?
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
In all honesty, I was talking to Dave and Carl Mary and also Janet before she left. In the 15 years I've been here, the last 10 managing the budget, the line items in the general fund simply don't change much, hardly ever. So I'm proposing, we're not gonna go line item by line item. You can see this in your draft in the form of screen. What I've asked Dave and Carl to do, as well as Mary, is to high point changes in expenditures, or there's really no changes in line items, basically. I added 2, I'll show you in a minute, for the parks, trails, and youth committee. So we'll start with legislative, and as I indicated, the worksheets go out in September. I received the last week of August the assessed property valuation, and that's a big number, that's a big part of our budget. And the other big part as far as revenue side is your sales tax. I'm on for that all year now. So as far as expenditure is concerned, Mary did the worksheets, and these are very brief categories, but legislative is you, the governing body. So right now we have the salaries are the same, and Mary looked at these numbers. Because of change with codification, municipal code, Mary, I mean, our flat rate is now $2,800 a month, is that fair?
A year.
A year, so we lowered that. Dues and subscriptions, that's the annual CML dues.
How much is that?
This year was 1605, last year we were estimating 17. They don't go up a whole lot.
And what's the benefit again?
CML training and legislation, I go to CML workshops if we want to, that's part of the membership. I mean, it's not real expensive, so we stay with it. I don't know anybody that doesn't, because they give you a lot of support. The new one is I put in the 2 committees in here. And that's why there's an increase of around 18,000 from next year overall from this year because of those 2 committees. That's contingent that the Atlas agreement gets inked. I'm still working on that. The gentleman from Boulder from Atlas didn't like some of the language in our contract. Sorry.
Okay. If we're looking at, the business committee rolling out when Cheryl's done, and the public safety committee, should we put something in there for them? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what kind of funds would be needed or requested, or we know what these 2 committees are doing.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
That's quite a bit of money for the 2 committees, but my suggestion, they just have to share. Those
Okay.
come out. to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
but yeah, that amount of money. So Carl, can I ask you, from a public safety standpoint, I was thinking neighborhood watches, so kind of an idea, right? And you tell us how to do that, so it's effective and efficient and not a I'm all powerful, almighty, I can arrest you kind of thing.
Oh, sure.
Is there a budget that needs to go along with that? Is it just a group of people just with their eyes open?
I don't know if there's necessarily a need for a set amount of money set aside for something like that. It's more or less
everybody working with each other. Maybe if there was a need, it would be a small number. Nothing is, coming to mind necessarily that's
Okay,
real expense for high dollar for us to run a neighborhood watch.
okay.
Would you have a sign? You just need
Some
signs.
communities have signs,
Uh-huh.
street signs,
Okay,
that say, you know, this is a neighborhood,
Oh,
okay,
neighborhood or whatever. But that's,
I was
okay,
gonna say, we do have a sign budget in the streets,
okay,
so I don't know if that's where that would, I mean, I always put a little more in the street sign budget than we anticipate, because it never seems to fail that all of a sudden, 3 years from now, we decide that we want, 200 signs of this, or something like that. So I try to leave a little bit in there that could probably absorb something like that, but I don't know, I mean.
okay.
And the business committee, you would hope they be self-sustaining and not need a budget from the town, right?
I agree with that, but what if the business committee wants to see the town market the businesses that buy licenses? And so then maybe is a brochure the way they need to go? I don't know how much it would cost, I have no idea, but I would like to see it turn into a chamber, which is then completely separate from the town, not even one of our committees. So I just wanna make sure, I
Oh,
kinda.
yeah, I agree. We don't wanna get 6 months into next year and the committee takes off
Right,
and they,
right,
we,
and
PPT did it for a year, it is what it is.
absolutely youth.
Grants were
absolutely.
found to make it work,
Yep, yeah, youth is, got a lot of money donated and, yeah, so same thing. No, I don't disagree. I just,
I think it's a good point.
between the 18,000, maybe between the 4 different committees rather than, but I do see youth and PTT using the majority of that full amount.
Sure, and I just put those as placeholders in case they started up and then
Okay,
just remind that the money is sure.
yes, yep,
And I don't see finance committee coming off the track or on the board, but maybe it will, if that does happen. I don't know what kind of funding we would need if that did happen.
yeah, that's,
Troy, does that have to be a separate line item for each committee, or do you just put the total amount in there and just call it?
Yeah, I could do it either way. I mean, initially it was just the 2 committees. And, when I finalized it, I just made the committee budget and just 18 grand they all share. Knowing most of it will go to Parks, Trails, and Youth, Parks, Trails, Trees, and Youth.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
We do have municipal election next spring, so we're going to put in some election expenses. Is that gonna be a mail-in ballot, Mary? Or
You
whatever?
tell me.
So let's talk about it now, because it affects the cost. Is the board want a mail-in ballot
Dramatically.
or a polling place?
Polling place selection runs is less than $1,000. A mail ballot would be probably closer to 4.
I had a lot of people complain about not having a mail-in ballot 2 years ago. Would that have made a difference? I don't know.
I think you got more participation with the mail-in ballot, and that's what we discussed last time, that, but then, I think the board at the time decided that the cost was, that they know where that, but I think, everybody's used to, with their busy schedule, that a mail-in ballot would be easy.
Well, on the surface, you would think so. In the past, it's
It's
not
not
made a bit of difference.
Yeah, I haven't had
Here.
any more
Maybe
participation.
it's because it's a different mindset. People don't vote locally if there's nothing wrong.
But what
But
if
if
we,
there's something they don't like, they all turn out and you can't.
what if we decide to have some important stuff on the ballot, and,
Well, I
we
think
get a
that
one?
Besides
that
board
time
members.
is passed, isn't it?
Hmm?
That time is passed to add stuff to our April ballot, right? Or not? Our April election.
Yeah, we can still have ballot measures.
If we decide to
If we
raise
do
taxes or
November,
do this or
we
do that in our study session, then it'll be on the ballot. You want as much participation on it, then
Personally, I don't see a problem with the in-person polling station. That's the traditional way that Americans vote, in my opinion.
What's easier for you guys, mail-in or?
Oh, no. A mail ballot election is a lot more labor intensive if people vote. If they don't, it's not a big deal. There are a lot of things that, we have to get from printers. For example, the criteria is very specific for how the ballots and all of the envelopes and the timing. So that's most of the cost.
Okay.
It takes fewer judges. Judges are a big part of our budget for elections.
In 18, that 1358, does that include the judge's salary as well? Yep, so it's, I've heard both. I mean, mostly the older crowd, the seniors, traditional, they like to walk in and vote, to get the sticker on their shirt,
Yeah. And even if
a lot
you
of people
do,
don't want to come to town hall.
even if you do a mail-in election, you have to have a polling place on the date of the election. So just for that
So
reason.
we do both, they just cost more money.
I would like to do, you know, and do that, because I think last time I opted out, we did just a forward price. I think this time we should try doing the mail ballot. Yeah.
We still have a polling that day.
Right.
But I prefer mail.
You prefer mail?
Now, like the mail-in, but
Harold?
For here, it doesn't matter, I like any of the mail-in.
Okay, okay. Spencer, Larry?
Well, the one advantage I see to having the mail-in ballot, I know it's more expensive, but it tends to disenfranchise people who are working out of town, working odd hours, 12-hour days.
That is true.
They go to work at 6,
A lot
by
of
the
our,
time they get off, the poll is closed.
and a lot of our employees here are oil field, and those are 12-hour shifts.
I mean, so it's just from a democratic idea that effectively disenfranchises voters.
You mean having a polling place on
Mail-in.
So I mean, if they had the option to mail in, granted, the participation level may not be significantly greater, but it's not because they didn't have the opportunity to vote.
True.
I can't disagree, I didn't know that it was gonna be both, that you had.
It can be
On the
something
mail-in, you
has
still
to-
have to have
Right, so if you have to do both,
You
then.
have to have a polling place on election day for people who have
I know.
spoiled their ballots or lost them or just don't wanna vote that way, need help with the ballot.
If I remember correctly, the thought was 2 years ago was if people really wanna vote, they'll be here to vote. And that was one perspective. But there was also a lot of people that I can't get there. You know, my hours of work, so.
I respect that.
Well, it just seems
That was
incumbent
unfair.
on us to provide every opportunity to them to vote if they choose to.
Yeah.
If they don't vote, well, that's not on us.
Oh, sure, keeping in mind that those are the same people that get utility bills and don't know they are something that have to be paid. So,
I have no argument with that.
At least the ball's in their court, not
that's
ours.
true,
Yeah.
that's true.
So I just changed it from 15 to
Okay.
104,000, is that sufficient, you think, for mail-in? And we'll still have plenty.
I got some bids for, printing and all the envelopes and the
Okay.
postage and all that stuff, and that should cover it.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, can someone, if we did a polling place only, can someone request either an absentee or a ballot that they could mail in?
Always
They
have.
can,
So,
Oh, I heard, yeah, you're right.
and,
so if they really wanna vote and they're not gonna be able to make it, Nick, you were just saying, you can't make it on a polling day necessarily, depending on what your schedule is.
It's a good point, Dave.
I don't know, it's just a thought, because if they really wanna vote, that's how I did it many years before Larimer County went all mail-in ballot. I just put a standing request in with the clerk.
Yeah, we did Weld County for a long time too.
I just put in a standing request with the clerk that I requested an absentee ballot for every election.
If we start notifying, we did a polling place only, if we start notifying people right now, is that information you could keep? Like if they have standing
For absentee ballot.
absentee,
Oh, sure, we would, note that on the voter logs, once we get them from the county. They have to do an absentee ballot, they have to fill out a form asking for that, to make sure that we have the correct mailing information, and we keep those.
And $3,000 is the difference between the two options.
Yes. 3,000 bucks, I mean, I don't wanna just toss 3,000 bucks out the window, but at the same time, voting is at the very basis of government.
I say we try it this time and look at the numbers and see if we get a substantial increase.
Yeah, because it's only 2 years later.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you wanna see, we're quadrupling the budget, right, so you'd wanna see a substantial increase, I would think, on people, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I made the change for mail-in ballot was done, or replace that day. Judicial is our municipal court, part of the staff's wages, which is mainly Devin and I think Mary, come out of salaries and wages up here. Wages for translator, we also have wages for the prosecuting attorney and judge. Legal services is prosecuting attorney, judicial services is the judge. And if we cancel court, they don't charge us, which is nice. It's a flat rate, they both get $600 a month. And that's for about a 3 to 4 hour window in court. Zane sometimes will send additional bills, like he has recently. He called me the other day about the new legislation coming down the pike on municipal court, which I'll bring that up to the board before the first of the year, because we have to have policy in place. There's a new House bill out there that states that first-time offenders that go into court on a non-traffic violation that could result in jail time must be represented by a public defender. So that's gonna require us, unless we take jail time completely out of our court system, it's all fines only, which Zane's gonna talk to Judge Mike Stewart about how he wants to do that, it's really up to the judge. The judge is appointed by you, I don't control him, when we get along with it, he serves you, the board. But, he'll probably establish or suggest a policy we'll adopt it. Otherwise, just like we have a prosecuting attorney every month, we have to hire a public defender every month to come represent all first-time defenders on non-traffic violations. So,
How many people do we put in jail?
I don't think we've ever been anybody in jail.
Right, I think the numbers will be low. As a rule, I mean, we write, someone has an altercation at a school and they get a citation, or harassment, but the majority of the citation that we write in municipal court is on the road, so.
and it's slow,
So it's
like Zane said, even if we only have, say, five a month out of 500, you still gotta pay that prosecutor for the entire time of court, as you would the prosecuting attorney, because he or she has to be here if those people are on the docket.
So it's all or none.
It's all or none.
That's if we have, for first-time offenders, possible jail time.
Yeah, which we've never imposed jail time, we've threatened it.
Right.
But it'd be for like shoplifting, assault, theft, those are, we're a municipal court of record, so that means we can fine up to $1,000 for up to a year in jail. And there's times where I've seen Judge Stewart threaten somebody with jail time if they didn't do certain things to make restitution, and then he just drops the jail time. But I just wanna bring that to the board that may affect this budget, but I have a feeling that if we can just remove the jail time aspect and just fines only, we'll probably be just fine. I'm gonna defer to Judge Stewart. And a lot of our shoplifting's kids, aren't they, or we still have a bunch of adults? I know the G gets hit all the time.
We have about half and half, and as what we can also do is if it is something that's major, we can write it in Well County, and just, because it's up to us, we write it in Muni or Well County, we'll just start writing it in the county on those occurrences, you know.
Okay.
So,
I was gonna say, cause you could potentially have a crime that somebody needs to go to jail for.
Yeah.
right? Like-
Exactly, and we can hook them and then write them, and we just don't get that revenue off.
That never happens in our small town.
I mean, I either.
I think most of our revenue comes off speed tickets anyway, and infractions and not misdemeanors. And as a court of record, we could also handle DUIs, and I've never wanted to do that, because that just costs a ton of money. We have to have programs in place,
Oh,
and a probation officer.
In fact, though, didn't we just a year ago made a muni suspended license charge?
Yep.
And that kinda stinks, cause there's a ton, so we write those all the time. So that's kind of, we just started writing them in the county again, but yeah, we lose that revenue writing them into muni
no.
for a suspended license.
You have the option to write it in the county or in the municipality. That's
Right, we usually write it into muni, do you wanna keep the money here?
Right.
Yep. It's up to the
but that's a
officer.
standard option that you have.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, they have basically a cheat sheet that gives the court dates for county court based upon the offense, and then municipal court. What are you saying?
Not that she makes it really easy for us to look and see what Weld County will be August the 17th.
Oh, the cheat sheet.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So that may impact it. I just scrolled down to executive, which is the mayor's. You have a very small budget. You have your salary, you have some training, and then you have some bennies, not much. So, the 1,500 typically is your travel training meetings, going to CML, reimbursement for meetings, whatever. So, as you, unless you got something big in mind, but,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't go to CML this year, but that was for that mayor's
yep,
training down in Denver.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, that we really won't change. If you want to, Mayor Pro Tem.
They've given some thought to the mayor's salary, which if we change it, it would only be in effect after the spring election. It wouldn't be the remainder of this term.
Why would you change
Like
it?
that.
Well, I think that it should be higher.
The salary?
Uh-huh.
What's the mayor's salary a month now?
$200.
It's $200 a month, and board members are $40 a meeting, I believe.
See, I think the trustee's salary should go up. I mean,
Okay.
you know, I mean, I understand this is a volunteer type position, but I think we were lucky getting these three guys on at $40 a meeting. I think we wanna get more quality people like these guys are on here. I think we need to raise the trustee salary. I mean, it was $75 a month for many years, and now we just got like a $5 a month raise for $40 a meeting, unless we go to extra meetings.
What's the number you have in mind, or do you?
For a trustee,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I don't think we should go lower than $125 a month,
Do them monthly instead of per meeting.
yeah.
Because right now, Mary and I looked at this, and elected officials handbook in their meetings. For example, like the steering committee meeting, if you go to that, you don't get paid. It is regular meetings, special meetings, and study sessions. And that's how it's outlined. And some places will do a flat month, because it just covers everything. You may got like a bandit in July when we may not have a meeting, but this time of year, like in October, you lose on me, because you have all these meetings you want to attend. So, I don't have a preference, it's up to you guys.
Do you know what the other town's trustees are getting?
Oh, I do not.
I know Garden City's paying them $200 a month
For the trustees,
for trustees, a meeting.
a meeting?
But, yeah, but they
Holy
can,
cow.
they can
They
afford
can
it.
afford it.
They can afford it.
Well, yeah.
We all know why.
Yes, we do.
I am fine with what the salaries are personally. For me, it's about heart, not about money. I know not everybody feels that way, and I get that, and, you know, everybody needs to give something up to be here, for
Right.
sure.
It shouldn't be about, I'm doing this for the money.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be.
No, and even at $125 a month, that's not doing it for the money.
Well,
I mean, you're taking time, and I understand, I mean, I did this for 8 years at $75 a month.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think we should raise it. I mean, you're taking time away from their families. If they get involved in the town, like Spencer and, you know, I mean, they're taking a lot of time away from their families.
That's true.
the only thing I disagree with you is, instead of setting it per month, still keep it per meeting. If for whatever reason, you can't make the meeting, I mean, I never got paid when I didn't show up to work.
Well, I got paid when I didn't show up, so,
I mean,
that
that
was
would only-
$75 a month.
But that's the only distinction that I would make, you know, is that it still be per meeting,
Well, then what would you say per
per
meeting?
meeting attended.
And that was the reason why we went for meetings for
Right.
the board last time, because of that conversation.
What if we left it $40 per meeting, but we included the committee meetings?
That's what
Included what?
The committee meetings.
youth committee.
I personally wouldn't fight for that, because I like being on an equal playing field as the rest of the community, as far as being a volunteer.
Okay, okay.
But I would agree with Larry and Hope on this subject. I think especially our current mayor does a lot of work 7 days a week for this community. And I don't think the trustees deserve a major raise at all. I certainly didn't get into this for anything but to serve our community. But it's a welcome check that does help out sometimes, and I can't lie either. So that, I feel like we do put a lot of work in. But I don't know how everyone else feels about that. I would say like if we would raise, it'd be like $60 a meeting, and then we'd go to like 4,000 for your salary versus 2,000. So it's nothing. We're not talking about a lot of money here.
No, I would go with 60 meeting plus the.
60 meetings for the board and what, 300 a month for the mayor, 350, what are you looking at?
Yeah,
300 would be 36,
Right, so 350 gets you close to
4,200.
4,200.
How's that
Just-
sound to you, Mr. Manager?
I mean, it's a small part of this budget, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't have a concern at all.
One,
Just keep this in mind when we talk about employees, okay?
okay, I took care of you.
I know. I'm talking about these guys.
Yeah, that's, good save. One thing I would point out was that any increase in the compensation for trustees wouldn't go into effect until they are reelected.
Right, right.
Just so that everyone knows that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to look ahead.
That's about
And
2
when
years.
was the last time it was raised, Hope? Do you know?
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
And it went from 30 to 40?
It went from $75 a month to
Oh.
$40 a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So that to
And-
go from,
And the mayor's went up,
Was it from $100 a month to
Yep.
$200 a month?
yeah. So the mayor's salary doubled at that time.
Mary, when we did it 4 years ago, did we do it by ordinance? Is that how we did it, do you remember? So we modify the ordinance and then after you get reelected or a new one comes on, and you get that fixed?
I'd have to look that up. I think it was just the elected officials handbook that was changed.
Elected officials handbook, maybe a resolution. We'll have to look back in time, you want me to schedule that for, second meeting of November as a discussion point that we can definitely bring it up.
So what happens if, you know, I am involved in a lot of stuff because I choose to be. What happens if in the future, you know, we're all involved as much as we want to
We have a
be.
very active support this.
We do, we absolutely do, and I think that's, we're getting stuff done, we're, you know, lots of good changes, happy people, I agree wholeheartedly, but what happens if a board comes in place that isn't as active?
Right.
You know, that's the flip side of it.
You're always gonna have that.
Yeah, I was not in favor of any kind of increase last time, and I don't feel that I am in favor of it this time, just because it's about heart. But,
Oh, I agree.
If people are
it's
doing
about
it for the
heart.
money, they're doing it for the wrong
But
reason.
even $60 a meeting is not a lot.
I don't just, yeah, no,
You
I
know.
don't disagree with that.
And
I know the fire board, they get $75 a meeting,
They meet once a month.
but they meet once a month, yeah.
What is it, President, it was Gary, is he part of the same?
I don't know if you get the same amount, but,
Probably more, because he has a sign here, he's like Gary.
yeah.
All right, we'll schedule that for the second meeting in November. And I'll just verify what we did last time, if it's a resolution or ordinance change or employee or elected official handbook change, we'll bring it up as a draft form. There's 60 a meeting for elected officials and 350 a month for the mayor. Is that correct, by the board? Okay. Right now, we budget alone. That's just a few $1,000 though. Moving on to admin, again.
It wouldn't even go in the budget.
Yeah, we have to, like, here the mayor's salary, I'd have to change that 2,400 to,
Okay, cause it's after April, the.
Exactly.
Go up, and then 3 trustees.
with, exactly, I mean, we have to do that math to estimate what that prorated amount would be for 4 people. So,
Cause we're gonna get, there's a lot of seats up there.
Almost three,
Oh, there's 3.
and the mayor,
4, because Nick's on a short term.
but it's always 3,
Yeah, there's always 3 elected officials in the mayor.
and it's 3, it's Hope's seat, Nick's seat, Troy's seat.
I didn't say that. Oh.
Oh, just got to
Might have been.
Moving on to administration, front office. A lot of these numbers just stayed the same. Again, just a reminder, the yellow projections, I tweaked those, so I think they will be in there. I really don't have a whole lot to add because the numbers. Here, the postage, I'm putting everything up here. Where'd it go? Copier expense. David Green already combined it, so that's why it threw me off, so I might as well just, it makes sense just to put postage and copy the same, it doesn't really matter. Employee Christmas party, accounting and auditing. I had a conversation with David Green several months ago about Cliff Larson. They're a good firm. He felt as our accountant that we could get a better price and the same quality. Because of the transition from Cassell to Assist this year, I mean, you see Mary, she's cringing. Devin pleaded with me, I'm not gonna put out the RFP for this year. Well, I'd want a whole year of a new software system before we have a new accountant, or accounting firm. Because even David Green, he said that would be a headache, and it's gonna be a headache for Cliff Larson, because they're gonna be redoing 6 months of financials on one program, 6 months on the new program. So, since they've been with us for a number of years, I decided to make a change. Computer consulting expense, we did do some increases. We're gonna have to get a new server. What else I just said here?
Did we give a new server or a server room
It's gonna be,
last time?
we had a new server this previous time. Just such a delay on this, I'm sorry. So all IT at townwide goes into admin. So police, public works, you name it, it comes in here. And also our Cassell fees. But I wanted to raise this because we're gonna have a $4,000 SQL server, Mary, is that what he said? SQL server, and it's our oldest one. It's been here for way before Connecting Point. It's been here about 8-10 years.
Plus replacing all of the machines that are still running Windows 7,
Oh,
Yes.
which falls out of
Yeah, from January, there's two.
Yeah.
You can't,
Not
so we
supported.
have software upgrades that are mandated, so that's part of that increase. And computer software purchases, actually here, this is a software increase, this is the new server. Downsize it.
Can't click that fast because we don't see it.
Okay. Well, there's such a delay. I hate that.
What are you using?
Hmm?
What device are you using?
It's just Bluetooth connection to this new TV that David set up for me.
One of HDMI would be quicker.
It might be, we have to,
You
you
probably
bought
have a
something,
dongle.
didn't you?
The dongle setup, like would.
There is I've got a dongle HDMI set in my office right now. But
We may play with that.
this connection was working, so we didn't open the box on that one yet.
Don't fix what they broke.
And we'll see.
So-
The main requirement that the boss put on me was no wires between there and there.
Oh, people to trip over, yeah, that makes sense.
So, thus it's wireless. And we're whining about a 2-second delay.
Just calls you a whiner.
Sorry, it's pending.
Noted. Noted.
It's your computer. Well, it is, and it just locked it up.
Oh, no.
Oh, seriously?
Hook up your dongle.
All right, thanks for coming tonight.
Oh, great.
Dang, I didn't think it'd go out that fast.
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta
Yeah, no, well, not nothing like that.
Yes. Oh, that's right. You gotta hold them all together. Your battery dead? No.
It popped up there.
Well, at least when I have one tomorrow.
There we go.
We're back on. Dang. I didn't get out of here.
No, we're not. That was all arrows and keyboard.
Oh, task manager just popped up.
There we go, there we go, there we go.
See, you just open the task manager and it's like, you know, warning your children.
Right. Sometimes that's very true.
That's what I
Back
heard.
up and running. Actually, I was talking right before the meeting that tonight actually should be a relatively short budget session. We're not gonna discuss every line item, and there's no rec or senior something. But in admin, because IT, there's about $6,000 increase over last year. This year, if you look at 151, 126, that's the difference why we went over budget. Actually, we would have been under budget, but that's where we bought lot beef. That's when Mr. Green took it out of the general fund because it's using reserve funds, but you have to show it in this manner. You don't show it out of reserve, you show it out of your budgeted amount. So,
Did the board need new iPads or do we need to put that in here?
I was wondering if that's something we need to talk about.
okay.
Surface Pros or something like that would be preferred.
Like
for you.
Chromebooks, right?
Yeah, something on the,
I like my Chromebook.
something on the Windows or Android platform preferably. I'm not a fan of the Apple stuff at all. I have a hard time with it.
What are we looking at per unit?
Oh, those are much less expensive than iPads.
Yeah,
400,
like 10%.
400, 500 a thing probably-ish, right?
Oh, maybe last year's was 2. Yeah.
Okay.
2 to 3.
Yeah,
So,
So what I'm gonna do is add a couple grants for this.
right. Yeah,
On computer software purchases
especially at Black Friday,
Oh.
something, you know what I mean?
from 7 to 9, and that should cover up to $200 upgrades.
I
So
mine's
can the
fine.
employees have a shot at the old iPads?
yeah,
So
you
can
can have
the
that one over
employees-
there.
Can the employees have a shot at the old iPads then if they're still functioning?
Sure, no replacement value.
Burning everybody.
I've just got an older iPad than that.
So,
I'm a Droid person, but the rest of my family.
So you're gonna switch from what, Apple to Samsung?
Yeah, or Chromebook, like an Android or a Windows. or less. But
Something like that, yeah.
Hey Troy, what's a website development?
Yeah, that's
Website.
title.
I didn't do these titles, but David. Alright, so about 8,000 more in admin from this year. Mainly IT issues. So, since that is driving David crazy. Okay. B&G, buildings and grounds. We no longer have separate categories for senior center or community center because we put it under B&G a couple years ago. David did this work, as you can see, from 19 to 20, pretty much held the line. Landscaping town hall, David, that's a big increase. You want to discuss that?
Well, it was the manager's idea, however, not being totally honest about things. We were looking at,
It's true from last night. You tell the truth or say it's pitting, guys.
All day long. All day long.
that was fantastic.
Man. I told my wife about that, she goes, did Lori slap you?
we had, if you've noticed over the last week or so, we've begun some of the island restoration along the west side of the building out here. Along the west side, right next to the building, we had talked about moving some sprinklers, moving the wall out just a little bit and giving a little more of a flower bed to get things a little bit away from the brick wall because they burn up so bad and we really can't do anything nice along there. And then if we're doing it on that side, then the town manager is very linear and wants it all to match, so we would potentially be doing it along this side out here as well. So that's what the additional funds were, was to make both the east and west side of town hall kind of match with some landscaping and a little bit of brickwork, or block work kind of out along there.
That's like $5,000, right?
We put $5,000 aside for
To
it.
make town hall look better.
Yeah,
This is landscaping.
I mean, that would be some landscaping. There is some stucco work that we could potentially start to be looking at. The building is 20+ years old.
It's never been repainted.
It's, never been done, so, we really didn't add anything significant. We're starting to dress it up a little bit, but, I don't know how many of you drive River to Reynolds going over to or from the community center, but the home right on the corner there, he just went from siding to a really nice dark brown stucco, and he's done a lot of work to his home. It looks really good. He said the stucco guy was amazing, and so I was thinking about trying to get some bids for some patching, and I don't know whether you can repaint stucco or restain stucco or whatever you do with it. I mean, I think that's the whole idea, is you put it on once and you're supposed to be able to put it on and ignore it. Well, ours is falling apart in certain areas.
In the north side.
And but that was just a little bit of dress up around here, trying to, the gentleman that's doing the work out on the west side right now was known to one of the public works employees. We've had our public works crew doing part of the work. This gentleman got all the plants and is doing the irrigation and that, but we're providing some of the labor and getting some of the topsoil brought in and that kind of thing. And that was stuff that we just had as part of other budgets in parks or at, up the cemetery. We've got some topsoil for dressing that up and that kind of thing. So we were able to use a little bit of that. We had some extra, the landscape fabric, the weed barrier type fabric that were left over from other jobs that we were able to use and that kind of thing. So that's the long answer, sorry.
No, that's fine. So I just want to keep town hall looking nice. Next spring it's gonna look horrible next to the Taj Mahal symbol. I'm just kidding. But it's gonna look pretty good.
It's true.
Mosquito control, did they indicate if there's been any rate increases for next year, David, or is it gonna hold the same?
There hasn't been any indication of a rate increase. Our rate has been the same with them for, I believe, 6 years.
Okay.
So, a small rate increase would not shock me, but, they did not give me any indication that that was coming.
Just look, yeah. So it's $400 a week per weekly application. They usually come on Thursday night, Fridays are back depending on any weather, rain or high wind. And some people like it, some people don't. To me, it's more of a placebo effect because the people think we're spraying and they feel a lot more better. Or that was really good, a lot better.
More better.
A lot more better.
I don't.
Man, I hang out with the 13-year-old.
I think it works in the front yard, in my backyard.
Yeah, exactly. Like I tell people, I mean, we have 2 ditches on the east, we have a river on the west, we have crops all around us, we've got Hendrickson, Flager irrigating corn all summer. You're not gonna keep the mosquitoes away. You're just not going to. But it does help a little bit. My wife says it does. And pest abatement is for prairie dogs. And we haven't spent anything this year, but we will before the end of the year, because I'm working with Rocky Mountain Wildlife to take care of our newly acquired town property.
Yeah, and we'll probably spend all of that.
We'll spend all that. And Maria's also working, she's sending out notices to Platte River Farms, which is way out of control, by Bella Vista. Slumberjay next to our property, Nick Crystal's property,
Well, that's bad.
and then that 10-acre lot along immediately adjacent to the sewer lagoon on 13.5, it's overridden. So all that ties in together, so.
Okay.
And if it's in town limits, so we can require them to abate. Nick Crystal's the only one that's outside of town, but couple years ago when we did abatement, over by the ball fields, he volunteered, he paid his own.
What about down at Hochschneider's, is there a problem down there?
I haven't been down there for a long time, to be honest with you. I don't
I don't
think.
either.
Out on 38.
38. So maybe we come in tomorrow, Dave, just swing by there.
And we'll see if the brain is working that fast anymore.
Otherwise I'll go.
Remember to go do that.
So pretty much hometown, the B&G, building grounds increases just for landscaping. Planning and zoning, I developed this one. The one that threw it off this year is building inspection fees, and a lot of this is a pass-through. On the revenue side, you have building revenues coming in, safe built, and then it's going out in planning and zoning. So I bumped it up 20,000 next year. I may be out of line again if we have a lot of building going on. The previous year, we hardly had any, 21,000. This year was a good year for revenues, but also expenditures. But this is a pass-through. Engineering services, legal services, planning services, this is all for development review. The 22,000, I increased a little bit from this year's for the town planner. With the new 7-Eleven coming in place, and I know the Caston submitted their building permit with the Energy Park. Today she's working with Paul Eisenach on his site plan on the old gas station on Main Street. Things are starting to move a little bit more, and I think they will continue for this next year.
What are they doing with the old gas station?
He's going to make a business front in the front side, a small, some kind of retail, and then he's doing the park in the back. So he wants a steady income, and then he also, he wasn't gonna do the whole thing at the apartment complex, and I asked Paul to just do a small storefront where somebody could do a coffee shop or a barber shop or something retail on Main Street. And he agreed to do that. He's gonna start stuccoing it next.
Cool.
And then the economic development was upstate Colorado.
So we're just gonna give the planner a raise.
Well,
She's paid on a per need basis, is that how it works?
hourly.
Hourly.
And this year, she might not meet budget, she may or may not, because when it's slow, instead of coming every week, I ask her to come every other week. And there's times where she takes vacation, she doesn't come, so she doesn't charge, she's not on a monthly salary, it's per hourly. And, from what we used to pay, we used to pay over 100,000 a year for town planning services. Now we pay based on this, and it's been 5-6 years since we've looked at planning, legal, and engineering, so it's coming up again. We should take a hard look at
I was
those.
gonna say, is that number enough for our rate, for what we're trying to do? We're trying to get a lot of stuff
Well,
planned, right?
this is for her, this is what I call the town time. When she's working with a developer, there's a reimbursement agreement,
Okay.
and developers pay for her time.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
That makes sense.
like with, I use Paul Eisenach, and he's a good guy, and he's okay with me talking about this, but for the first couple of meetings, to find out what he wants to do, I'll pay for Melissa's time on a Tuesday. He had to come here on Tuesday when she's here. Like today, he's on a reimbursement agreement. Now, he's gonna start paying for her time because it's kind of just good business. The initial meeting only give you for free,
Yeah.
just like with 7-Eleven, but now they're gonna start paying the town for her developer review time. Yep. So,
And that applies to the engineer and the attorney's fees as well.
exactly. Those are
Once
reimbursed.
once the reimbursement agreement is signed by a developer, anything that Steve Gutierrez does, Melissa Kendrick does, or Kendra Carberry does, at that point, that is associated with their development, then they pay for their time.
So at the end of the revenue section, I won't scroll back up, but if you recall from last night, we have some development reimbursements. That's what that is. That's money coming in, and then some of this money is going out and getting reimbursed. So, building permits through this budget off as far as this fund, because of everything else is pretty nominal. Police department, this is obviously Carl, his officers. Benefits, did agree put in there, raises, or salaries, we didn't change anything. Not sure why that's 410, it should be a little bit higher, but that's a correction I can make. The blue shows the salaries in each fund.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Maybe because it's just cop safety.
Thin blue line.
I was gonna say that dawned on me when it came out of my mouth.
Going past the
Kinda like
benefits.
last night.
Politically correct colors.
19 to 20, looks like Carl kind of held the same. Carl looks like he bumped up equipment and training, or equipment supplies a little bit. From 6 to 8,000. Where's that typo?
I'm asking myself if, what the reason for that was.
I'll change it back.
We upgrade body count.
He's like, I got you guys $100,000 in tickets, can I have $2,000 more in stuff? That's probably what it was. I don't blame that.
Well,
No, was that for the scanner,
Oh, yeah.
our scanner that we need for?
That's what it was. The PD prints to the hallway printer, and I hate that because there's reports, sometimes warrants come in, and usually Mary and I grab those and take them to PD, or Devin will, she's a court clerk, which is fine. Carl and I did talk about putting a standalone printer scanner just for small stuff in the PD, and that way it's all locked up. So that's
Oh,
really
yeah, that's
good.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So, supplies the same.
Your officers got all the best they need.
Yes, one actually ordered one last week, and mine is a couple years overdue. So if there's extra in there at some point, I may update mine.
Yeah.
You need to update
What do you
it.
mean, a couple years over?
You need to.
Well, it's, there's a shelf life where it's under warranty. It'll still save a life, but they have to say after this many years, then
We need to order a new one.
Just order a new one.
Yes, please.
You got plenty of money, Carl. You're looking at maybe $2,800. You budgeted $6,000, so go ahead and get that ordered.
Yeah.
Are you listening?
I am, yes, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to.
It-
She was just saying I can wear a second one.
Double safe.
They make him look a little,
That's
you
what
know,
I said, I
stubbier
would
or
make you look
something.
bigger.
Our body cam technology is adequate enough.
No, and that's something that we're working on. So at the time, who we used a couple of years ago, they were okay. They were top of the line. I talked to others as to who they use. They're awful. They shut off half shift. They won't last all shift. Others have to go back and swap them out. So we are looking at we're gonna move away from who we had and go with someone else. So I'm doing my research and homework and talking to other chiefs, see who they recommend to. But they're moving along with new stuff all the time. Well, county's gonna go to one that super duper, I mean, it's expensive, but if you lay horizontally, it'll shut off or turn on by itself. If you turn your light bar on, it'll turn on by itself. If you take your handgun out of the holster, it'll turn on by itself. So that's the technologies that
That's
we're
awesome.
at. Yes, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Right now, we have to actually hit it on, then hit it off, which is muscle memory now. It took probably half a year to get in that, but we're set and we're regularly recording everything
But the
unless it
hammer
dies.
comes down the first time somebody forgets to push that, you know what I mean?
Well, and that's happened, or they leave it on and they use the restroom or whatever. So it's the opposite of that, but so yeah, they have some explaining to do.
No, I'm just saying, if there were an incident to occur and they didn't turn it on, that's when you'd be under the most scrutiny. You know, they do
Absolutely.
99 out
They
of
would-
100, it's that one time.
They would wonder why, and we make errors too.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it happens a lot. That's why they made these new ones where it comes on by itself. So
Exactly.
you don't have to worry about messing around with that at all. It does it by itself and
Well,
safer.
It takes accusations away too, right?
There's been several that have
You didn't
made
turn it
up.
on for purpose.
Absolutely. He did this, and like, well, let's go back and watch it. And I'd watch it with them, and what can they say? They got caught in their lie.
Or, yeah, they, couldn't turn it on or forgot to turn it on, and somebody says, you didn't turn it on purpose.
Right, yeah, and if we can see a habit of that with this officer only turning it on and off at certain times, that's a problem, but
Sure.
we're all human. And we all make
Absolutely.
it, But they've all gotten really, they're used to this, it's muscle memory now. We are gonna get new ones that will work, so yeah.
I would love for you to price out at least the latest and greatest, something that would work well.
Yeah,
Keep us protected and keep you protected,
thank you, yeah, I sure will. I've been doing a little bit of research and homework, and I've gotten some who, some of it's kind of overkill. Well, I can't say that. It's, if you lay down.
Wanna rephrase that?
Yeah. Some of this may seem unnecessary for a smaller town, because we don't have that many calls where we would have to always have it on and off and handguns out every shift, and whereas larger agencies, they take their handguns out numerous times a shift. So it makes sense to have an automatic recorder. So some may see it as kind of, for a smaller town, unnecessary.
Well, we're also on the highway.
What's that?
We're also on the highway too, so
Yeah.
you don't know who's coming into town.
Any kind of ballpark ideas to what one of these would go for?
The ones that I just mentioned?
Uh-huh.
No, the ones that I'm entertaining are 900 a piece, and these are the on and off your cell phones. The ones that have everything, handguns out of holsters, I didn't even look into just because I just assumed I would just assume,
How would you need? Do you need one for every officer, or can you split them between, if you had 4?
right.
would you do?
Well, we have the SROs, and then we have the officers that are on, then we have someone working an HPE shift or an extra shift. And so it would make sense to have no less than 6 that can be swapped out, one side of the work week, one side of the work week, and sharing's fine, yeah. Especially if you get the higher end stuff, where, you don't have to worry about it for years.
It's good insurance,
It's good insurance,
Yeah.
it's,
Yes.
yeah.
especially in this day and age, and there's times where calls as opposed to me about a complaint, they'll pull it up, and I'll look at it, it's like, there's no complaint. The officer did a good job.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And it holds officers more accountable too.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, absolutely.
The one that highlighted PD, which is the biggest change, everything is pretty much held in line, is dispatch and computer fees. It went down, and I'll explain that here in a minute, but it really didn't go down. Carl, you on the top of the board?
So
Dispatch
radio
is
services, yeah, radio services has went up. Weld County has been super nice all these years by floating most of the bill, and Sheriff Green said no more. So it's going up, and which it's understandable, but it's went up 9,000 or 11,000 for this upcoming year. It's gonna continue to go up every year till 2022, as I mentioned yesterday. Right now, we spend 17.5% is what we pay. By 2022, we're paying 49.5% or something silly. I mean, so it's gonna for sure go up by 2022, just for radio services alone. It's gonna be an estimated $29,000. And what is it this year?
This year, right, we're at 17, a little over 17, and I think you still have one more invoice to submit on something. So what I've done to explain why it's only 6,000 next year is that 23,000 just for the dispatch fees. I've now moved that into the law enforcement equipment training fund, which that money comes from court fines and 2 contracts with Gilchrist and the school district. And before we leave tonight, let's do the general fund. So we're probably gonna come back next week is how we're gonna finish up with that fund and the police impact fund. So I'll show that to you in a little bit, but I decided to take that out of a special revenue fund and take it out of the general fund for the special revenue fund. Just that fee for the dispatch. The rest of the fees, your software system, your Lexipol, your training, your Will County maintenance on the radios, is that gonna stay the same, Carl? They charge like a monthly flat rate, I think.
As far as I'm concerned, and it's for each radio that we have, and they reflash it every year. If it needs to be maintained for any reason, we just walk in and hand it to them. Now, these are new radios, so we haven't had, I say new, I think we got them last year, so they're about a year old. We haven't had any major issues, but if we were to, we would just walk in, hand it to them, and they would fix it for free of their maintenance. But I have not heard that that's gonna go up.
Yeah, the sad part Carl was talking about is for many years Advanced Wireless in Evans would do our radios and our MDTs and equip our cars and everything, but when was it, Carl, that Will County took over all MDT service?
Well County, yeah, this was probably 9 months ago. They said they wanna work on radios, they wanna work on cars, they wanna outfit cars, and honestly, they should have left it with the experts. Well County,
Well, county wants to outfit our police cars?
well, they wanna maintain the radios, and yes, if anything goes wrong with our radios or anything else,
Really?
their maintenance guys work on our radios now. There's been a couple times, if a mic went out on a radio or something, we would just swing by Wireless Advanced, and they're like, we're not supposed to, but I'll knock it out really fast, and they would do it. They're awesome people, they're really good, but, yeah, Well County's pretty much in charge of the MDTs, radios.
How can they just say that is this not free enterprise?
No,
Yeah,
because dispatch is under Will County's purview, so if you have a system that's connected to their system, they can tell you no more Advanced Wireless, which has been great. They're wonderful people. They're just
yeah,
wonderful.
they really have been. Now, light bars and whatnot, I think they'll still use.
Yeah, basic, you
Yeah.
know, striping and emergency equipment, but anything with radios, like you
Nothing
said,
radio
MDTs,
related at all for these,
Have
so
to
the
go to
car
Will County.
radios,
So they're
handheld.
calling their whole radio system proprietary, then
They
basically.
took monopoly away. They have it all now. Yep. As of earlier this year, right?
Yeah, and if there was something wrong with a car, we would just swing it up there, sometimes sirens or something, mishap, we would just run the Wireless Advanced. Now we have to make an appointment, and, which usually they'll respond in a respectable amount of time, but we have to, and it's farther away, and I don't know, we don't like change, right, so it's an adjustment, but we're making it work, but I hadn't heard that was increasing at all, radio maintenance fees.
Maybe just what Will County buy your cars for.
Right? Do you feel like you guys get enough training? I know that policing is changing and it's harder to keep police officers and find ones to want to do this job more and more. So providing on-the-job training and making our officers feel valued will help keep them around and help you guys maybe do your job better in a potential situation that you aren't faced in all the time. Do you feel like your budget right now, is there opportunities that you feel like you would want to take more advantage of, or are you good with what you're doing now? Obviously, you're the expert, so I don't want to say, hey, you need more training if you don't, but.
No, we have an outstanding set of guys and girls, and obviously we let them have the resources they need where they're happy here, they're sure of their services. I think that, obviously, you're talking about hanging on to officers or retention.
That portion and certain, it's hard not to cite certain situations you see in the news where an officer may be reacting too quickly and maybe they didn't have enough training. Maybe more training would have provided a better reaction than what they present.
Yeah, I think we absolutely do, and anytime something like this happens on the news, we all talk, we all say what we should and should not have maybe done, or what we would have done. It's hard to Monday morning quarterback, and
Oh, yes.
we weren't in their shoes, but we for sure we're allowed opportunity to reassure ourselves and to utilize the tools that we have, I think, every day to kind of work and know what we're kind of, I don't know, it's
What about counseling?
yeah, it's that's absolutely offered with what they see out there, if that's something that they need. And I keep a close eye, and they all have a great relationship outside of work and in, so if there's a concern, they'll come knock on my door, they'll sit down and say that something might be going on, but it's absolutely offered, and they have the resources they need, so.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Carl does a really good job doing mandatory monthly meetings, we all like training. And I sat in on one, I think last month, and I emphasized to everybody that, I can't decide for them, neither can Carl, that, they deal with, a lot of fatalities, a lot of blood and gore sometimes, and it's getting to them. Talking to each other is one thing, I remember those days, but if they need more than that, by all means we'll offer to, for sure. I mean, every time there's an officer involved shooting, it's mandatory that we bring in counselors. And they're specifically trained, a lot of them are ex-cops, or ex-firefighters, ex-EMTs, so they walk the walk, talk the talk, and then they become trained to be counselors. And 10 years ago, when we had an officer involved shooting with two of our officers involved, we had, actually Gary Sandow was one of those counselors that came in, especially training. The officer that actually did the shooting called me up the next day and said, I need that more, and so we did a weekly counseling for months and months. So it's necessary. It's one of those things they have to deal with. The one thing I want to bring up, and I don't want a decision by the board tonight, but I've mentioned this, I believe, briefly to the mayor. In 2013, the end of 2013, right before the flood, we began taking over Gilchrist. They disbanded their police department. We won their contract. We've been providing that contract since that time. Part of that contract is they had one officer, and we absorbed that officer. So we went from 7 patrol officers, which includes the chief, to 8. And then a few years ago, that officer from Gilchrist left. We never filled the position.
Kept the money though.
We kept the money. And if you look at it, I won't bring it up now, but if you look at the revenue side, the expenditure side, the PD budget is, what, $650,000, $670,000. Between the SRO contract and the Gilchrist contract, we bring in about $275,000, almost $300,000. And a couple years ago, a board member said, we're actually spending less money on our PD than we ever have because we're backfilling it with contracts. Now, the SRO contract, the school district pays 100% of everything for them. Even in the summertime, the money they gave us covers their salaries. On the regular side, I think it's time to fill that 8th officer position. So I want to put that in everybody's ear tonight. Once we get down to the general fund and get toward the end, this was a discussion for that last meeting, but I really want the board to consider bringing that 8 and having Carl hire that 8th officer. Part of any business or management, as you well know, is your staffing. It doesn't matter if it's be front office, police, public works. This year alone, we've had shortages in all three of those major departments. We're about to have one go out in the front office for the next three months probably, due to a pregnancy. Dave has been without a blood works guy for 3 months. We won't have him back probably till next year. Carl's just getting 2 officers back on duty. But that's part of life, that's just part of business. So in the PD especially, since they're 24/7, having that 8th officer to help Carl stay on his chief's rotation and not working rotation, that's my purview. Cause I'd like to have him handle those day-to-day operations as he needs to. So, wanna throw that bug out? And just so you know, that'll probably be about another, with benefits, 65, 70,000 a year, okay? So, I'm gonna bring that up. SROs are short and sweet. We got Matt and Ian. Wages, they don't really have much of a budget. They have their own uniforms and vests. They're doing their best, aren't they, Carl?
Yep, they're good to go.
Okay.
Those two amazing.
Yeah.
Aren't they? We got lucky, nothing short of luck that they would apply here, and of course, I snagged them.
Yeah.
But we got lucky.
The kids respect the heck out of both of them. It's amazing. Getting kids to respect people is not always an easy task.
Yeah.
Now, anything else talking about, Matt's in year 3, right? He gives us a 5-year commitment.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. He's a couple of years out still, but yeah.
He wants to retire at a certain age, and that's fine. So overall, public safety was actually less of a budget for 2020 than 2019. Remember, I took 20,000 out of it just to avoid the walk with the training. Otherwise, it would have held the same. Public Works, David, we'll scroll through the wages and benefits. Pretty much held the line. David, a little bit more in gas and oil, and looks like supplies mainly. You want to talk about that?
Just because you know, in 18 we were at 3,000, and the projected for this year was up around the 3,000, so I moved that up. It's just, part of it is, if you remember, it was last year or 2 years ago that they took all of the multiple funds that Public Works had and kind of combined several of them into this, and so there's a few more things that get to, supplies is a generic. If I go buy, you know, a half a dozen bolts and nuts and something else for, we needed, you know, the case of this, well, no, it's not, because I did I was gonna say the bolts and stuff to hold the benches for the Parks, Trails, and Trees Committee. Initially started to go into supplies, and then it was like, wait a minute, no, there's a grant for that, so that one did get pulled out and actually earmarked. But it's that kind of thing. If we go up to Fastenal and we need 4 bolts for this project, but we wanna have 12 bolts on the shelf so I don't have to make a trip to Fastenal next time, then it just goes under supplies. It doesn't go under streets for maintenance and equipment, or, you know, sewer, water, whatever. I try to be pretty specific, but just, this is kind of a general catch-all for miscellaneous small items.
So overall, I mean, the projection is gonna be under budget. Next year's not a whole lot more. The difference really, if you look at it, is this workers' comp. So you talk to David Green, I'm not sure why it's so much higher than this year. I think it's a formula mistake, but otherwise it's pretty much the same.
So we're not talking tonight about what David needs in the Public Works Department.
If it's basic annual O&M and maintenance stuff like supplies, yes. If it's capital projects, no.
Capital projects would include equipment purchases?
Correct. Anything of 5,000 over, small stuff.
Gotcha.
Would be discussed tonight.
Did you add in the splash pad cost potential?
I have not yet.
Is that?
That would be under parks, which I don't think we've got the parks yet.
No.
Streets and highways is the next one. Again, 19 and 20. Maintenance and condition, that is, it used to be about 80,000 a couple years ago. We built up to 100,000. That's not a capital project. That's just maintenance townwide. patching. I mean, most of it may go toward a tie into a county project like this year with Bella Vista.
Right.
But it is a townwide maintenance of patching. David, crack sealing?
We, normally this time of year, early in the spring, we get into the crack sealing. The company that we have used for the past several years went out of business. So my price hold and the way that we did business with them was they came in, they did a fantastic job. We knew what we were getting. And I told him what the budget was, and he usually did about $26,000 to $27,000 worth, and came back and discounted the rest of it to get the $25,000 number, and and that's where we were at. Plus, he always put a team and sponsored a team in the golf tournament and a couple other things. So I'm going to have to get a little more creative. There are there's other companies that do it, but they give you a price. What he did was he just gave me a price per pound. So I would give him the streets that I wanted done, and he would go as far as he could go, and if he didn't finish a street with the poundage that we had left, then he would eat the difference and finish it, because he wasn't gonna leave a half a street done. And then he would discount the price, like I said, $26,000 or $27,000 worth, and then he'd discount the price per pound to get back to the $25,000 we could afford to pay. Anybody else, they come in and they want to know how many linear feet I have. I don't know. I don't have time to go measure every crack in every street. You know, and so that's where working with the other company, he gave me a price per pound, and we said, okay, $25,000 by this many pounds. These are the streets I want you to start on. This is the worst, so make sure this one gets done, and let's work our way to this one. And if we've got extra, I mean, 2 years ago he came back and it's funny, if you go in and look at the Google view of Reed subdivision before we chip sealed over there, the Google view of that 2 or 3 years ago is still up on Google Earth right now, and you can see, man, they did all kinds of, they practically crack sealed the entire street in spots, because number one, it was bad, but number two, we still had a little bit of money left, and we still had some poundage left, so I said, well, go do the little ones that you skipped earlier. And so what I did, long way of getting to that, is I just doubled the number for next year, because I'm not gonna get it done this year. I'm not gonna expend any of those funds that we had set aside this year.
I think Andy Hine is starting that kind of business.
And if Andy's doing it without the other individual that Andy's been working with, that would be great.
It's not with the other individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll probably bid that out.
So, but yes, I'm looking, I sincerely doubt I'm gonna get it bid and done between now and the end of the year.
Too cold.
So, no, it's the best time of year to do it. Because what happens is, as things freeze, it actually expands the cracks. So then we can fill more of a crack, and then in the summer it actually brings them back together. So it's actually the prime time of year to do it.
Yeah.
Which is why we couldn't get Hudson's air compressor right now, because they bought a crack sealer and they're doing their own. So,
I do not want to do it.
no, couldn't agree with the boss more on that one.
So the
Don't want to buy an air compressor.
not only the crack sealing.
That's right.
So the difference between this year and next year is that that double the budget for crack sealing. At the very bottom, you'll see land lease UP. That's an annual lease that I pay to Union Pacific, so we can use Front Street. If we don't pay it, then they block it off and close it. So it's a one-sided contract. Looks like it goes up about $200 a year, so I budgeted $8,000 for next year, hoping that I'm right. But most of I was a little under this year.
So can we make a deal like Wells County did and buy it out and be done with it?
That is to be discussed. I brought it up with UP and the land guy because of County Road 30 closure. At that time, they said they're gonna move arms that were dedicated up by Gilchrist to the County Road 34 crossing, which I'm shocked they don't have that installed yet. But I brought up Front Street and he planted me to someone else that Dave and I met. He was from, I think, Omaha.
Right.
And he came in, we talked about it briefly, but he didn't get back with me.
Well, there were so many layoffs.
Yeah.
Right, because you were dealing with Lance. Lance is gone now, right?
Yeah, Lance Kiffin's gone and
They don't take first point shoulder and trade either.
no, not so much.
Troy, when do we get that money from the county for that?
Elizabeth, today, I reached out to her to make sure that she received the IJ and the PUC application, so they did. The Board of County Commissioners approved that this morning, the IJ. And then Chad Hall from CDOT is the one that Elizabeth's working with. He emailed me and said he's processing the $1 million payment request. They will give it to Will County, and Elizabeth will send me an invoice, or I need to send her an invoice, and then she will send me the $1 million, we'll put a call trust, so we can make money off of it until we need to use it. So, we're almost there, it's close. The PUC application, Chad Hall said, asked where the mayor signed it. Well, on our version, there was no signature spot for the mayor. Where other towns, they had a signature spot. So I sent Chad Hall the board minutes of approval, and he thought UP would accept that, but he's let me know. If they don't, basically they'll send another agreement back, which is exactly the same one the board approved, they'll have this place for you to sign. It's silly, but it's hurdles that we're jumping through, so. It's coming, at least Liz told me today it's coming. Refuse collections passed through B and C. We make a little money off this. Mary, we make, what, $1.50 per resident each month? So there's a little bit off this. I think we pay out about $150,000, $160,000 to B and C.
Now, have you talked to them this year about their rate for next year? Because
They don't know until right before.
I read an article earlier in the year that Waste Management, which I believe is where they told us they take their trash to, was raising their rate for dumping, and it was a fairly substantial increase, 5%.
They do it differently for each, like, if you are willing to go out to dinner, then maybe your rate won't be as high as the person behind you. So that's how Waste Management rolls. But Waste Management's the only operation around here.
Yeah.
They have the monopoly on it.
But years ago when Brad Cohen came on, it's up to them to notify us by a certain time.
Yeah, they did last year when
And I do want the board to know that we are the highest around for trash collection. And I don't see that happening this next year as far as an increase, but I do want to talk to the board about that happening again and looking at some other options. Because we're hammering our residents with all these fees, to be honest with you. I mean, BNC is great. I love Brad Cohen. They do a great job. But water rates are going up, sewer rates are going up. I mean, we're charging $23 a month for trash, which to me is nothing. I mean, I forgot all that stuff. But my 95-year-old neighbor Fred, he doesn't even have half a can out there. So, and I can't split it. The town attorney won't let me split it and give a senior discount. I can't do it. So that's a conversation we're gonna have when.
What about a buy use thing? You pay for 1 can or you pay for 4 cans?
BNC doesn't do that. It's all or nothing. So some of the companies will give you one that I looked at. I think Adrian may have looked at one, but it's maybe $10, $12 a month for 2 certain size cans, and if you want more, then you pay more.
Yeah, and they offer recycling.
And they offer recycling. So that's something that's coming down the pike. It's not here yet.
I couldn't agree more with what you said about fees, though. It's coming to a point where we can't honestly ask our citizens for more money. Especially when the town is getting revenues, we have to start giving that back in some way, I think, personally.
Understand. And then cleanup days, this is for the spring cleanup roll-offs, or just, what are they, $400 a roll-off, David?
Yeah, and then my guys do such a good job of filling them, we usually pay a little more than that because we pay overweight charges. We use the backhoe to compact them and tighten them up to make sure we get the most out of our space. I think 14 of the 17 roll-offs last spring, we had an overweight charge on as well, so.
Wow.
The guys make sure they were high and tight.
I think it's a great benefit to the community, and I would say just keeping it, so.
Absolutely.
These stay the same. Here's your parks, Spencer. And then we have community events, which is, I'm gonna spend this money for that community engagement meeting next month for Trail Trent. We have the mowing contract part of RSL, is that right, David?
Correct.
So we got park sanitation here.
And that's Porta Johns And once in a while, one of the roll-offs that we keep out at the lagoon, we keep one roll-off year-round out there. And when RSL picks up the trash, when Public Works picks up the trash in the parks and that kind of thing, that all goes out to that roll-off, so.
So your indoor buildings and equipment are probably gonna be the ones we focus on, for the new splash pad. Okay, so we'll have to come back to that, but, I don't know exact numbers, but we may just double those numbers or triple them, I don't know. We'll just have to talk more about that before we're all done, okay? Maintenance and repair.
That's right.
Yeah, so the upkeep of the new restroom, the new splash pad, and the new equipment. The park equipment purchase, that's just a random miscellaneous number to, bolts and pieces and whatever we can fix on the current one, but it doesn't.
Yeah, that really doesn't touch much of anything. I mean, once in a while, somebody commented that the slide was falling apart over there at Lincoln. We have had that company that comes in and does the plastic welding on it, and so we spend $400, $500, $600, $800 to have them do that at various times on different pieces. That kind of thing is where that, but any significant, I mean, when we replaced the one portion of the one slide, it was just one section of the slide over there at Lincoln Park a few years ago. It was $900 just for the one piece, and that didn't include installation. That was just them digging the mold out of mothballs and re-pouring it for us.
Now, most of the picnic tables at Lincoln Park especially are pretty flimsy or bent, you know what I'm talking about.
We pulled the ones out of the grass.
But most of them are
Grass.
gone that were in the grass,
Yeah.
but there's several under the shelter that
The
are
ones
still.
under the shelter, right. I mean, they're better than nothing, for sure, but if we're gonna do park, can we put money for that? I don't wanna spend all our money in one place, certainly, I understand that.
Well, Dave and I talked about that when we pulled those, there's 4, I believe, around the south and east side that were in the grass. And by the touch, they just I just tell the yank them out. So Hawker, he was happy, grabbed the backhoe, he was yanking them. So what we talked about is cutting the ones out of the shelter because they're bolted in or they're
cast into the concrete.
They're cast in. Cut them and put the concrete tables in their place.
Yeah.
So
I know Anadarko and several other companies have, meetings and lunches there.
And, we'll probably reach out to Occidental and see if they can help us with an improvement project, because a lot of times they will.
Yeah.
We had Anadarko did, much better, Occidental.
That 25,000 there for, maintenance for grounds, that takes care of the ballparks?
David?
I don't remember the ballpark. I don't think the ballparks are in that one. I think they're.
This is just Lincoln and Riverview and.
This is Coronado, Lincoln, Rogers Farm, the Greenbelt at Rogers Farm.
Ballparks come out of Conservation Trust Fund.
Ballpark, yeah, okay. And then the cemetery comes out of cemetery fund. So
And that all comes out of the Lincoln grounds.
I don't know for sure that we'll get to the 25. I put the 25 in there just because I wasn't 100% sure. I mean, last year, or in 18 we were at 24, and then 19 was a little different. We were only at 16, 17,000. So I'm not 100% sure where we're gonna land.
We won't go over, I mean, they have 1 month left and we're slowing it down, aren't you?
Well, they didn't mow this week at all. We call out 2 weeks in April, 2 weeks in October, once a week, with the exception of the ball fields are done twice a week on the actual ball field itself, not the exterior. That's done once a week from May to September. And then they did mow the ball fields yesterday for this week because we didn't want to lose any of the small kids in the football program on Saturday.
It looked good today when I walked out.
But that, and the other thing with RSL, in past years, we have always bid it out. We've used RSL now for 4 years. 2 years ago or last year, I don't remember, the board opted to go ahead and go with RSL even though they weren't the least expensive bid that we got. RSL contacted me a month ago and said if they don't have to bid it, they'll just hold the line on the numbers for this year for next year. And, because we opted to go ahead and go with them, as I was talking with the mayor earlier this week, sometimes, I'll steal Larry's phrase, it's sometimes better the devil you know than the one you don't. Not that we couldn't possibly save a little bit of money on that, but, in my 11 years being here, they are the third contractor that we've used, and it takes a significant amount of time to get to where they understand what we're looking for and we understand what they do and how they do it. There's certain aspects of that RSL does that I'm not sure their manager knows, that the field guys take care of that for us, so I really don't want him to know. Because that's not showing up on the invoices right now. But the guys are going ahead and knocking it out and getting it taken care of, just because it's easier to deal with it on a routine basis than it is to have me say, oh yeah, once a summer I want you to go knock this area down, kind of thing. So.
The reason why I was asking is I noticed in the last 3 years the go-ahead sticker population is starting to increase there on the north side. And I don't know if there's something they can do about that, because it's starting to get like it's all engulfed underneath that northwestern field scoreboard.
Okay.
There's a big patch there and a lot of go-ahead dandelions.
They get that.
It looks like there's a lot of dead patches that are starting to spring up where the go-aheads are gonna start taking place.
And they don't do anything with the fertilization or chemicals at all. We do that
Okay.
ourselves. So all they're doing is mowing, Nick. So,
I don't know if
that,
there's a focus or a budget, we can focus more on that, cause I mean, when we moved here 6 years ago, that field was just green carpet.
right.
Now it's starting to go downhill a little bit, in my opinion, there on that, outside the ballparks, and even inside the fields, it looks a little bit dry sometimes, but.
Okay, so we have just a grand in weed control for parks. Do we wanna, it's controlled now, I don't know why that is, but weed control.
We control.
I did not type these in.
Likely excuse.
I can't spell. G-R-O-I. So, what, David, what do we do about go-aheads, and what do you think the cost would be?
Please,
I mean, right now, it looks like it's almost to a patch that's big enough that this room, you most pretty much just have to resod it. I mean, that's how big it is.
And that, I mean, the only way I've found to effectively deal with them is there's a couple of products that will kill them. If you catch them as they're flowering, sometimes you get lucky. But basically the only real way to control them is to go in and kill them, and then you have to go and chase that mass back to the single root that it is in most cases, or, you know, you can literally roll them up and kind of come back to the mass and pull that out. But yes, we would need to pull it out, and then probably we would have to look at a potential resodding in that area. Now, having said that, I'm jumping ahead to the 30th when we're talking about budget stuff, but they are going to be, if we go ahead with any of the work on Reynolds Avenue and the drainage work, part of that is going to be a new retention pond on the northeast corner behind the east field. So there's going to be a whole bunch of sod in there that we could potentially hire somebody that can run a sod cutter and come in and remove some of that, and we could probably take some of that that's still good sod and not have to go buy sod, but pay somebody to come in and remove that and put it into a location like that, maybe.
Okay.
So,
I don't know if that was
but,
something that we need to add for.
and that's a great idea. I mean, I'm holding the line. I'm not, I don't go wander the ball fields on a regular basis because I don't necessarily have a reason to be out there, because I'm not playing the game and I'm not walking the fences on a regular basis. So the fact that those kinds of things are being brought to my attention, we can try and do something about it. But yes, we, you know, under the weed control, I would say potentially double that $1,000, because I don't know if you guys have looked at weed control products lately or not, but every time the guys go up there, it's $500 to $1,000. We've got some in streets as well.
That's north of the fence on the other side of the fence, right?
With that being
On
said,
the north side by the
We need to provide some proper safety equipment for anyone we're asking to use
Yeah.
weed control products. Because we don't want a loss, the town doesn't need to be having a lawsuit for someone who got cancer from weed control products. And, you know, come back and blame it on us, because it has happened multiple times this year. So at least have it available to your guys, you know what I mean?
And they do, they have respirators and safety glasses and gloves and all that is available.
Maybe we should have a policy where they have to use it or make it, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's available, but do they use it?
Sometimes, some of them.
I know that sucks, but you also don't, it sucks to tell somebody that, I understand, I work in a field where there's some dangers, right?
Right.
But if the onus is ultimately we're protecting the town from a liability standpoint and we're forcing health protection onto an employee, that's not a bad thing. You're not a bad guy for doing that.
It's a matter of training, Spencer, it's a training issue that we have to implement when we're doing the chemical. So, well, that's how it is. So parks, I had another 1,500 weed control, and ironically made it right back to what 2019 budget is, so. Community center, community building have been deleted, because everything's in B&G now, buildings and grounds. Rec department, we're skipping. Seniors, we're skipping until next Wednesday. Museum, not much there. It's just insurance, a little bit in our buildings.
Don't they need a roof?
Not the museum.
They
Actually,
needed something,
it's
They
funny.
need something,
yeah, there was something they needed.
yeah.
And I'm not sure, I was on the roof over there today and I was gonna call somebody to have them come look at it, because there's a couple of tears in the rubber, over there,
By and asked for something,
so.
yes.
They want something.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was though.
They want a second story, ultimately. I know.
Well, no, I nixed that.
Right, yeah, I know. But there's another sort of improvement, like a roof or some sort of thing.
Well, they want me to remodel the basement, put an elevator.
Yeah, that's part of it.
That's the second story, right?
No, I
Cause
just.
then they want storage too.
They have a half partial basement that,
Yeah, there'd be some exhibit down there.
and it's funny, cause they tell me, I was here, my first year in '05, they got the DOLA grant to do the addition to the museum. And they all dressed up and went with Dick Miley, the town manager, and did the presentation over the steamboat. And they got the award. But when it came down to finishing the basement, putting in the elevator, we did the shaft. A couple ladies voted not to spend the money on the elevator. The money was there, but they decided to spend the money on the elevator.
Ooh.
So now, there's a regret that they're asking me to put the elevator in, and I don't have an extra $100,000 laying around for an elevator.
No. And they can't put any displays in the basement
They
without an
can't.
elevator, cause you have to have ADA accessibility.
Oh,
So museum, let me double check with the ladies and see what's going on, and then if you wanna talk to them, let's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, under M&R buildings, we probably need to double that at least to deal with the roof stuff.
Other, I did put in a 50,000 contingency reserve again this year, just because.
Yeah.
Just because. David Green has not transferred the 32,000, he said, why? He said, leave it there, so I didn't transfer the money for Harvest Daze, because I had a dark paid for them this year.
Yeah.
So I did budget for next year, because when we go to, well, this is the general fund. So right now, full expenditures, you're looking at 140,000 roughly more than the previous year, 2019 to 2020. But overall, you're looking at funds, total revenues over under expenditures. 245,754. That's just an estimate right now, so it's not final. This year's budget, we're looking at having about 85,000 roughly, positive budget. Projected year to date, we're looking at not spending over $500,000 of our general fund. So the budget's not bad, we're always conservative, we try to do our best. Right now, preliminary, this is the best I've ever seen in my 10 years. If you go back to the revenue side, that's why. When I started as town manager, our revenue for sales tax was around 230,000 a year. I remember getting $30,000 to $35,000 revenue statements from the state. Now I'm getting 100 to 130,000 a month revenue statements from the state. Makes a big difference.
Could stand to go up.
Yep, and that 7-Eleven goes in with Laredo Taco, I guarantee you that'll go up.
Right.
That's monthly, you said? Monthly, you said?
Monthly. Yep.
Study session topic coming up that could, quadruple or that number.
Yeah, November 5th at 6:30. That night we may have steak and lobster. So. Just kidding. Just kidding, Rick.
Troy, was there,
It'll be
Oh.
raw, but.
was there a transfer, I don't remember, in the streets
That's
to,
capital improvement fund.
is it, okay,
Yep. You mean for the
for the bridge fund?
Yeah, it's capital improvement.
Okay, sorry.
What I'm gonna do is, don't look at the screen, I'm gonna scroll down to the LE Equipment Training Fund. There's your Conservation Trust Fund, we won't talk about that yet tonight. I will say when I talked to David Green today and I asked him to add a couple line items for revenues for the GOCO grant and for donations, he did not like that at all. For the use tax and conservation trust, he says, Troy, those are special revenue funds. You mess with them too much, you're gonna get in trouble.
Oh.
He said, why don't you put a capital improvement fund, cause I need a place for revenues to come in, expenditures go out. I said, if one of those two funds could hold this size of project for the splash pad, he said we could probably do it, but he said don't split between the two funds. So I'll be working next week. We won't talk about that really until 2 weeks. So the draft you have now will change. So I'm gonna do some tweaking with how we pay for Reynolds Avenue versus how we pay for the splash pad. It's just, we're swapping money based on the budget, what we're gonna do, okay? Law Enforcement Equipment Training Fund, it's doing pretty solid. The three main revenues is victim surcharge, which is 37% of the tickets that the officers write, they go to court, Gilchrist agreement, and the SRO agreement from Well RE1. The last 2 years I only put 10% into this fund. This year I put 20% with the contracts. Actually, I need to break that. So the fund's actually doing pretty decent. It needs to be about 200,000 or 300,000, but right now this is what it is.
It's a victim surcharge.
That's a good question. So Law Enforcement Equipment Training Fund. In the state of Colorado, they have a statute that allows up to 37% of citations to go toward a special revenue fund called the Police Equipment and Victims Surcharge Fund. So by statute, that money can only be spent on victim services or police equipment and training. So when I came here, that conference room was actually Southwell Victim Services office. There's 2 ladies that worked out of this building in that office. And when it was dissolved, long story short, Will County Sheriff's Office and Will County in general decided to basically take all the money from the Bell Board, which supplies victim services money, and they did not fund this program anymore, so they went obsolete. They couldn't afford to stay open. So they disbanded. Everything goes to Will County now, to the Sheriff's Office, or it's actually not the Sheriff's Office, it's its own division. So Carl here, what he has to do, as I used to do, is Will County Victim Advocate. They request a funding donation from each agency, right, Carl?
Yes.
And ours is 4,500. Is it going to be the same for next year?
Yeah, they haven't raised it forever.
So we donate to that cost because we help pay for victim services, and actually they're a great asset for our agency. We come out and help on any kind of child issue, domestic violence, car accidents, you name it, they'll help out.
So we make money on that. Looks like to me that.
We make money on this 37% surcharge. So on the revenue side, you'll see fines. Last night I mentioned, we're looking at 95,000 this year in fine revenue. Of the tickets,
37, so it's a $100 ticket, $37 goes to this fund,
To the victim surcharge.
to this law enforcement equipment training fund.
Okay, I was gonna say the victim surcharge
Yes.
and equipment.
Yeah, victim surcharge, you're right, Mayor, that's the actual revenue right there.
Okay.
It can be used for both.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I added the 2 contracts in here because with it being a police fund to help offset costs for specialized training, cop cars, special equipment, they should have some money coming from those contracts. That's how I fund this special revenue fund. So on the expense side, oh, I put it downside so you can see with my notes. Okay. I take a cost of the ever-vision notification system out of here. The victim advocate. The body cam you're talking about, Spencer? Carl and I talked about budgeting money to replace body cams next year. And Carl, this is where Carl and I talked, this is where I put the dispatch piece. That $23,000, I didn't want to take that out of general fund, I put it on this fund. And then the cop car. 25,000 purchase for the KHP used vehicle, or that would be the match for the CMAC vehicle. The match for CMAC is only gonna be about $7,500. And then it takes about $10,000 to equip it if that's what it was.
Do we need another police vehicle this year, Carl?
We have a couple running on E. They're, they don't have much life left in them, but we're making it work for now. I know we're waiting for CMAC, see how that was kinda going, and then, another one that the SRO uses is, it's on its last leg, but seeing how it only goes to school and back, and when he works in the summertime, there was no need to use that this year. We're good so far.
So Carl, the 2 Chargers that are the one that need to go.
They're the oldest, well over 100,000 miles on the 2. One's a 13, one's a 14.
So actually, the answer to Spencer's yes, we need 2 instead of just 1.
And we're gonna hire another officer potentially, so. And we have a CMAC for 2019 already, right, don't we? Got
It's
one?
a different name of a different program.
Yeah,
Well, the
this,
county's coming
Same
through
idea.
with it, weren't they?
this is actually a 2017 vehicle application for the CMAC program, and they stopped the program. Well, the program hasn't stopped, they just won't fund vehicles anymore. So, just a 1-minute summary is when the Federal Highway Administration said no more CMAC money for vehicles, these were already committed. But, and the money's still pooled by the federal government, they just won't release it. So Mark Kirkmeyer, Commissioner Kirkmeyer, Elizabeth Alford, CDOT, they convinced the federal government into allocating those funds all toward Will County for CMAC non-vehicle projects. And in turn, Will County then would personally, as a county, fund our MAC,
Which is pretty cool.
which is really cool. So that's coming down the pike, because the other day, CDOT asked Elizabeth if they'd received their check yet. So once Will County receives their check from the feds for their CMAC project, then the Board of County Commissioners will vote to allocate our funding for these vehicles.
So that'll probably happen next year.
I'm hoping Will County authorizes the contract still this fall, early winter, and then Carl will get a bid spec sheet from Elizabeth on what kind of vehicle he wants, and it'll be next summer before you get it.
But that's a new vehicle, not a KHP.
That's a brand new one.
Yeah, it's a brand new one. But there's a program that Will County, right, was taken over to replace the CMAC.
That hasn't been confirmed yet, they're looking at it, but that hasn't been confirmed yet.
Because David needs a truck as well, right?
No, we're not talking about David tonight. Seeing this one, you
That's
know,
still pending.
We needed it last year, so we can't go into this year and just ignore it again. We did that last year.
so if I do this, if I take the replacement of vehicle from 25
Thanks, Spencer, I appreciate
to
it.
say 40,000, one used KHP and one CMAC vehicle, and double the cost to equip them. The fund, still has a fund balance of about 80,000 at the end of the year. The board okay with that? That cars, one used, one new?
No,
Thanks.
when we sell those other ones, they'll go back into this fund or what?
They'll go into police miscellaneous in the revenue side.
We need a place to keep these damn cars so people don't think there's a million officers sitting in there.
Well, when we
There-
build a new PD, there will be a gated parking enclosure that they will go inside.
Good idea. Because
conversation.
when we hire someone else, it's just gonna get worse with people saying that stuff.
Well, we have 6 vehicles out there now, on a regular school day routine, you've got the chief in one, daytime duty officer one, the swing officer one in the afternoon, and 2 SROs. You got 5 vehicles in use, and 1 car in the parking lot. So people only see them at night when they come home, and that's when most of them are there.
And swings overlap with all those, so 6.
Yeah. And I've got articles from years ago. I talked to the police chief in Albuquerque, New Mexico, about 10 years ago when I was down there in training. Albuquerque PD buys a car for every single patrol officer in the entire city. They're required to drive it, obviously to and from work on their shift, and they're encouraged to drive it off duty at all times under policy. They have to have a weapon, they can't have anything in their system. And it has reduced crime in downtown Albuquerque by 20%. That was 10 years ago.
Which is a huge deal in Albuquerque.
Huge issue, because they're shooting all the time. But it also reduced their vehicle fleet maintenance and budget by significant, I can't remember the percentage. Because when a cop has his own cars, they're spotless. They're well maintained, the oil's always checked, the tires are checked. And it saves money.
Larimer County does the same thing.
Whoever county, a lot of big agencies do that, they save a ton of money, and the vehicles last
One
long.
thing is you wouldn't see a benefit of them driving around our community.
No, I'm not promoting that, I'm not.
Right, because none of them live in our town, right?
Right, well, and I should say, just so I can say that I mentioned it,
Here he is being honest.
I was
Right.
gonna say,
a lot of the officers have said they would, I mean, they've all said, take home car, and they would love to have a take home car in lieu of raises. And so,
They put more money in the pocket. Put more money in the pocket.
They
If we
save
had
money
more
on
car, we could.
gas and wear.
How far away are we from realistically being able to obtain that? With 2 new cars coming into our fleet next year.
We're still 1 car short.
because 2 were on our last leg, right?
How many cars you got, 6 or 7?
7.
You have 7. And if we got-
7, one's for sure on its last leg at the SRO.
And if you hire an 8th officer, we still be 1 short. So it's not out of the question, we start to do rotation.
Or, I mean, if I may, if they had their own on their work week only, so they leave it on their weekends, but just on their work week, they gotta take their car home and return it, then we have enough cars, obviously.
Yeah.
What about having stipulation if you're within a certain mile range?
And everybody's about a half an hour away.
30 miles our policy,
30 miles.
30 miles.
Oh, there is, okay.
Because that's our policy with Chief, with Carl and David. They have take-home vehicles, but they have to live within 30 miles of the clock.
And they would do that in lieu of raises?
That last I talked to all of them, which, yeah, they would.
One of the money in their pocket, Spencer. I mean, obviously, but I don't wanna have that conversation quite yet.
Just chew on it a little bit.
Chew on it.
See what you come up with.
Well, I mean, 10 miles to the west of us, Meade, all the officers have take-home cars, and they also make 10,000 more a year. I mean, they still officers, it's just.
Yeah, but Meade has more money than we
Yeah.
But finding
yeah,
police
Richie-
officers is only going to get harder. This is not a job that people want to do.
I would
There's
agree.
people that, there's other states are advertising in different states to try to recruit officers.
Loveland's paying a $15,000 lateral move bonus right now. If you'll come from another agency.
That's the law enforcement equipment training fund. I'm gonna wrap this up if I may. This other police fund, really, police impact fee. This $9,922.50, that came from the impact fees that, Evergreen, Upstream Energy Park paid. That's their portion. Some went in transportation, some in public facilities, and the other one, storm damage. Parks didn't get it because, commercial industrial properties don't pay parking taxes.
what I'm saving this money up for, I hope we get more new development, is this will go toward the new PD.
Why do commercial and industrial not pay front impact fees?
Because this only applies to residential. When we did our winter study, that we can't justify assessing a parking impact fee for commercial or industrial property.
They use it for parks on lot.
I know. But they also, the reason why, when BBC did that study, the reason why they can't pay parking impact fees is because for our development requirements, they have to do landscaping requirements, like the Energy Park has to do the landscaping perimeter. And they only had to do half of that because they paid the town a cash in lieu of $40,000.
Oh.
So, you know, those properties have to do landscaping requirements, and the bigger developments have to do park dedications, like Rogers Farm.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay.
So, they said I can't double dip. I don't know why I call it double dip.
Ask them whatever you want.
And this is public facilities, right here, right below, we'll talk about this next Wednesday, but they got 27,562. So they paid what, Mary? They paid about $100,000 in impact fees altogether.
Close,
Close. Okay.
this is the square footage.
Yeah. And that, you know, that we changed that back in 2015, that's gonna be a huge hit. When 7-Eleven goes in, we'll get some. When the casting shop goes in, we'll get some. So.
How often does that need to be updated?
What did they recommend? Probably every 5 or 6 years, so we're close for next year.
A lot's changed since 2015.
A lot with impact fees, you gotta see what changes in your community, because they look at your own community. And if we don't change or grow a whole lot, I don't think it's worth spending money to do the study. But if we do change and grow, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Because that specifically affects transportation, storm drainage, so pretty much all of it. That's all I have for tonight. Carl can be excused next Wednesday. Stay at home with your family. Next week will be David again. He has to attend every meeting, so. But Jen will be here and Diane Norman will be here. We'll start off with Diane, the library fund, the Gilchrist and Platteville Libraries. And then I'll let Janet do rec and seniors. And then we'll go into the other special revenue funds like public facilities and cemetery, and we'll knock those out of the way. So, sound good?
Yeah.
So on Wednesday night, it's already been a long week, so I'd like to adjourn.
Yes, please.
Okay, all right, we're done.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks for supper, Mary.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, delicious, Mary.
She slaved with that frying pan of chicken all day long.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary.